Okay, now we're going to do the drilling portion of this project. Before we do that, we're going to go over this drill press very quickly. Now, first note that there are several of these drill presses. However, there's some that are slightly different, and the differences I really don't believe that are going to be major. So if you have any questions when you get into class, it's really not that big of a deal. We'll be able to correct those. All right, so very quickly, okay, here's where our speed adjustment is. Here's our on and our off, or start and stop. This right here is your quill handle. And this is the drill chuck. Quill handle moves the quill down with the drill chuck in it. Here's the vise for where you're going to be clamping. And this right here is a clamp to hold the vise into position. All right. And if other adjustments need to be made, if you roll around the back here, you'll notice there's some handles. You can crack those loose and you'll be able to turn the table a little bit, or you can either raise it up and down. After it's loose, if you come over here, you can use this little handle here. It works in conjunction with this rack gear, and it will raise and lower that. Okay, so that's what we're working with, generally speaking. And then kind of over here to my side, it's not going to look like this exactly, but we have all of our tools set out here. We're going to be using a center drill. We're going to be using a center finder, which is going to be this. So center finder first, then center drill. Then we're going to use our 3/8, and then we're going to repeat that process for hole 2 and do center finder, center drill, and then the drill size for the ream, and then we're going to do the ream. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started on that. I'm going to set you down right here so you can kind of see what's going on, and I'm going to roll through this, and you're going to need to get practice with it anyway, so don't worry. Okay, so I'm working with this block that we've already got laid out here. One of the things that you should have noticed when we were looking at this, there's steps actually in these jaws, and it helps to give this block a place to rest. Otherwise, if we didn't have it for a place for it to rest, then it would be very difficult to kind of keep this, you know, at as flat as we need to in the vise jaws. So we've added these features right here to make it easier for everybody. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn this around. It doesn't matter which way it goes, where the holes are here. And I'm going to try to get it as close to center as possible in the jaws so that it doesn't do any tweaking or turning. And I'm going to snug this thing down. And it doesn't matter that it's not lined up at the moment, because we're going to show you how to get there. So I talked about the center finder. That's this device right here. It has a flat section here and tapers down to a point. This point right here is how I'm going to line that up. So I'm going to take my drill chuck, and I'm going to run it down, and I'm going to make sure that this part is sitting in the center of it. Okay, and I'm not going to tighten it much. I'll use this to just snug it a little bit, but it really doesn't have to be tight. We're not doing anything with it. Okay. And if I turn that on, that thing shouldn't be wobbling. If it's wobbling, you got a problem, stop and go back. So here I'm going to go down very closely. I'm going to use this little quill lock feature, at least I thought I was going to, and I'm going to hold it there. I'm going to loosen up my C-clamp so that my vise will actually move. I'm not going to move my C-clamp out of the way just yet, and I'm going to move my part, okay, or in the vise around until I can get this center finder to line up perfectly with my hole. So I don't want to try to put it down and move it, because this thing will kind of bend, if you would, as you're putting it in. So you want to get it as close as possible. If you see it bending or flexing one way or another, just keep adjusting it until it doesn't bend or flex once you get it down in that hole. Okay. And at some point you're going to have to let that back up so that you can get your vise being very gentle and snug that down. And then you're going to recheck, make sure it didn't move at all. Okay. And I'm just going to use a little bit of a hand adjustment here to kind of make it a little bit closer for me. All right. So now that I'm done that and I got it locked in, I'm just going to verify that. Get that center finder out. That process, I made it look reasonably easy. It's going to be a little bit of a, I don't want to call it a challenge, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Don't be discouraged if you find yourself taking 10, 20 minutes trying to get that thing lined up, just so long as it's right. So again, I talked about center drill is what you always use first. Make sure it's snug. It's always a good idea to go around and use all of the holes to snug everything up. And now we can go ahead and get to drilling. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer to my reference sheet. I'm not going to give away the answers here, but I've already done all the calculations on what my RPMs are supposed to be. So at this point, I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to go ahead and make my adjustment once it's running. Okay? So now that I have my RPM set, I can go down and begin to do the drilling process. Now before I do any kind of drilling, I want to make sure that I have the lubrication here. So I have lube. I'm going to put a little bit of lube on there. It doesn't take much at all. And I'm going to begin the drilling process, putting some, I'll say, light to moderate pressure. And as I'm drilling, I'm going to go down, and I don't want to make it all the way to the diameter. What I mean by that is it should actually have a taper down in there as indicated by the shape of this, but I don't want to be full diameter. I don't want to step in there, okay? So I got my center drill done. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this out, and I'm going to select my 3/8 drill bit, which I've already verified that that's what I have. I said that out loud, but that was not actually the case. Okay, I got my 3/8. It's always a good idea to read them. Not all the time you can because they've been damaged for some reason. So it's always a good idea to measure things to make sure you have it right. You drill the wrong size hole, and now you're back to the drawing board, or actually the saw in this particular case. So we're going to go ahead and put a little lube, start this up, and again, you have a little bit of vibration here. All right, now that we're out of that, we're going to put a little bit more pressure. You notice I'm starting to get a chip coil here. If I want to stop that, I just let up just a little bit. And now that I've got a little bit down in the hole, I want to go ahead and add a hair bit more lubrication. Just going to swipe that on, put a little bit of lube in the bottom of the hole. It goes a long way. And I'm not going to force down on this. I'm going to just give it a moderate pressure, let it come back up, break the chip. And I'm going to watch kind of as I pick up out of the hole here to see how far down I am. That's going to be very important because once I get down to the very bottom, okay, I want to ease back on the pressure. If not, what will end up happening is the drill will break through and it will want to grab. So as I'm getting closer to the bottom, again, I'm just kind of feeling. If it feels like it gets easier, I just want to be easier. So now I'm putting very little pressure, and now I'm all the way through. So now I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop that button there, and I'm going to take a visual on it to make sure everything's going all the way through before I go ahead and take my part out, because if I need to go a little bit farther, I got to set everything back up again.